Han Sen looked at Moment Queen with profound interest. I killed the son of a king, Moment Queen said, without emotion. What king? That sounds fairly powerful. Han Sen's interest continued to grow. Moment Queen responded, the spirits are at war in the third god's sanctuary. If the opposing faction can be defeated, the victor assumes rule. And you dared to kill the son of the king. You really are something. Han Sen paused, and then continued to say, that means, if you return to the third god's sanctuary, you will be hunted. Yes, if you are afraid of this, set me free. Free yourself of the burden that is me, Moment Queen coldly said. Well, that is a bridge we can cross when we come to it, sometime further down the line. But tell me, how can you return to the third god's sanctuary? Han Sen asked. But after this, Han Sen thought of a more important question. If his king spirit's super body was the same as a king spirit, that meant when he reached the level of a celestial being, his king spirit talents would be triggered. If he truly counted as a king spirit, that meant he could enter the third god's sanctuary like other king spirits did. He would not have to go through the evolution pool. If spirits wanted to go there, they had to max out their king spirit Geno points. When their king spirit Geno point total reached 100, they could go to the third god's sanctuary. The way king spirits increased their Geno points was similar to how humans gained Geno points. They could absorb life Geno essences and also absorb the life essences given by plants. But they were also different than humans. King spirits were limited by the elements they were born with. This meant they could only absorb the life Geno essences they were born with. If it was a fire king spirit, it could only absorb a fire element life Geno essence. Water element king spirits could only absorb water element life Geno essences, and so on. Although Han Sen had a king spirit body, he was not a celestial being yet. The king spirit's talents weren't activated, so for now, he could continue absorbing any kind of life Geno essence. When he activated the king spirit talents, he did not know whether or not he could do the same. He only had the king spirit body, he wasn't actually a king spirit. He was like a hybrid. Han Sen was silent for quite a bit, lost in thought. But then he asked her, what is your element? Space, Moment Queen answered. Okay, if I come into possession of space element life Geno essences, I will give them to you. But in return, you must adhere to my commands without question. Han Sen believed this was a fair trade. It wouldn't be a bad thing for Han Sen to bring a powerful fighter alongside him, for when he went to the third god's sanctuary. And Han Sen wasn't afraid of Queen Moment's issue with the slain son of a king. She was only a spirit, and once he reached the third god's sanctuary, he could always just keep her in his sea of soul and summon her when he required assistance. Han Sen now thought of where he might go next. Moment Queen had a suggestion. When they arrived at the correct mountain, it wasn't long before Han Sen caught sight of a big, green hawk in the distance. It was flying around just beneath the clouds, surveying the lands below for prey. Han Sen immediately summoned his little angel and let the silver fox and Moment Queen surround it in the sky. The silver fox appeared to be quite excited. A thunderous lightning shone, and it transformed into a thunder fox. He hopped towards the thunderhawk, while the little angel and Moment Queen flanked it from behind. The thunderhawk attempted to fly away and escape them. It moved extremely quickly, and its passing was accompanied with green lightning like a moving storm. The green lightning that surrounded the hawk was immediately snuffed out by the silver lightning. With the little angel and Moment Queen taking its rear, the hawk quickly found itself in a poor situation. After killing the Thunderhawk, Han Sen passed leadership back over to Moment Queen so she could take them to the empty vine. The mountain ranges were massive, and the rocky geography reached on for thousands of miles. They flew for 8 days before arriving at the valley she said the fruit would reside in. Before entering the valley, however, they saw 2 scary creatures fighting ahead of them. Why is he here? Han Sen looked surprised. He knew one of the 2 frightening creatures that fought. One of the creatures was clad in steel armor, and it wielded a great sword shrouded in green light. It was the armored phantom that Moment Queen once had authority over. Now, it was doing battle with a black skeleton. It wielded a weapon that looked like a bone itself, or some sort of horn. It wasn't easy to discern what it was at first glance, but it viciously fought against the armored phantom. When the strange weapon in the skeleton's hand collided with the phantom's greatsword, it wasn't damaged. Evidently, it was far tougher than Han Sen's flaming Rex spike. The armored phantom saw Han Sen from afar and ran off, abandoning its fight against the skeleton. It didn't stop, and it just ran and ran until it was out of sight. The skeleton had never seen Han Sen before, so it wasn't aware of the power he possessed. It ran towards Han Sen with its weapon raised, aiming to clobber its new target over the head. The little angel appeared in front of Han Sen, and her transparent greatsword was swung to assail the bony fiend. The creature's attack was so hard that she was knocked back 2 meters. Having its first attempted attack blocked, the skeleton didn't waste any time switching targets. Han Sen did not go to help the little angel, and he just stood there watching its energy flow. Much to his delight, he learnt that it was a second-generation super creature. But after watching for a while, he felt bored. The powers of a second-generation super creature no longer thrilled him, and aside from their element and how they were used, they all seemed to be the same. After learning many second-generation super creature energy flows, he started to realize how most were useless to him. His strongest skill was Sonic Thunder Punch now, and the combination of those two elements proved far more effective than the energy flows he had learnt from any other second-generation super creature. Han Sen knew the reason for this, however. He was in the second God's Sanctuary. The energy flows he could simulate were all the same, and only allowed for a power that did not exceed the unlocking of the first gene lock. If he entered the third God's Sanctuary, he could most likely simulate the power of super creatures that had unlocked 7 of their gene locks. Something like that was sure to be extraordinarily powerful and worthy of getting excited about. The skeleton continued to fight the little angel, so Han Sen summoned Moment Queen so that she might help her kill it. But the skeleton was cunning, and when it saw Moment Queen coming towards it, it quickly dug underground to escape. The little angel drove her sword a few meters deep into the earth, but hit nothing. Its flight was a success, and she had no idea where it had now gone to. Never mind, then. Let's just go find the empty vine. Han Sen used his Dongshuan aura to scan the ground below, and couldn't find a trace of the skeleton either. It appeared to be long gone now. Han Sen continued walking, and when he saw the empty vine, he froze. He thought it'd just be a vine that had writhed its way up a craggy cliff face. But when he saw it, he felt as if he had never been so wrong. The vine was massive. It was like a grand pillar wreathed around itself. It extended upwards like a tower towards heaven. It was so high, its top pierced the clouds above, obscuring how tall it truly was. Han Sen saw it from afar, and he noticed something else. The armored phantom was climbing it, and not far below it, the black skeleton had resurfaced and was chasing it up. They were going at a hurried pace, and before long, they had both passed through the lofty clouds. This is the empty vine. That's a big vine. How much fruit grows there? Do you think we'll have to fight for the fruit? Han Sen asked, while looking at the leaves and flowers. If each flower bore 1 fruit, the amount that would grow would seem limitless. And if so, there'd be no need for anyone or anything to fight to obtain one. He believed 1,000 creatures could eat their fill without hassle, if that was true. That is only the vine's root, Moment Queen said coldly. Root? Since when do roots grow leaves and flowers? Han Sen looked at her with an unconvinced face. Moment Queen continued walking towards the vine, and as she went, she said, "This is the root of the empty vine. As we climb, you will eventually see the vine pierce through a floating island that rests above the sea of clouds. Above the island is the true body of the vine and the life it bears. The fruit will ripen soon, so we best hurry." Han Sen summoned his golden growler and rode up, seeing as there was so much space. It was an interesting experience, and after climbing a few hundred meters, the view of the lands below was rather magnificent. Moment, how long until the fruit ripens? Do you think the Devil Blood King is here yet? Han Sen inquired as he ascended. It should be ready in about 2 days, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Devil Blood King has already arrived and taken over the best vantage points on the floating island, Moment Queen explained. If there is another 2 days to go, what is the rush? Let us climb slowly. While Han Sen said this, he suddenly heard a bird. Han Sen turned and looked, and he saw a black flame phoenix shoot through the clouds from the south. Isn't that the black flame phoenix from the Black Desert? If that thing was willing to fly all this way here, I wonder how many other creatures are there up top. Han Sen suddenly thought of something else as well. If the black phoenix is here, I wonder if the green Kirin is here too. While Han Sen was still thinking, he heard a woman laugh. He wasn't sure from which direction it came. Have humans come here as well? Or was that just another spirit? Han Sen looked around him but failed to see anyone. Moment, did you hear a woman laugh? Han Sen asked, looking at her. Moment Queen shook her head and said, what woman's laughter? Did I mishear that, then? Han Sen wondered, confused. Just as he was ready to forget about it, he heard the laughter once more. It was so clear this time that he knew he had not misheard it. Are you really telling me you didn't hear that? Han Sen looked at Moment Queen and asked again. Moment Queen merely frowned and looked around, not seeing anything out of place. Little Silver, did you hear that? Han Sen asked the silver fox, who was resting on his shoulder. It looked at Han Sen with a face that suggested it had not heard a thing. That's weird. I heard a woman's laugh, I am absolutely positive. With a puzzled expression, Han Sen perked up his ears and resolved to pay attention and sniff out the source of the laughter if it ever sounded again. This is getting really weird now. Han Sen, despite his best efforts, could not uncover the source of this laughter. Onwards he went. The empty island was far bigger than Han Sen imagined it would be. It was like a small kingdom perched above the clouds. Following the vines, they were led up to the island. Let me return to the Sea of Soul, in case I unwittingly draw the attention and possible ire of the Devil Blood King. Venture there alone and do not draw any unnecessary attention to yourself. If he does not notice your presence, we may very well have a chance of securing the fruit. It was obvious that Moment Queen believed Han Sen had no chance of competing with the Devil Blood King. Okay, Han Sen knew he wasn't powerful enough. His compatriots were too fewer, even fewer if you did not count the lazy fairy. It was indeed best to keep a low profile. Han Sen returned Moment Queen to the Sea of Soul, and then he ventured on towards the center of the island. The empty vine ought to have been there. He walked for 10 miles before hearing a familiar voice crying for help. Han Sen was taken by surprise, as he recognized the voice as belonging to a human. It most certainly couldn't have been a spirit. "Oh, divine masters above, I beseech thee to deliver me aid." The voice was one of pity, and Han Sen couldn't shake the feeling he had heard that voice many times before. Isn't that Wang Yuhang's voice? Why in the world is he here? That should be impossible. Han Sen, with a head full of questions, felt his face morph. This was where super creatures roamed in abundance. If Wang Yuhang had continued to accompany Han Sen since the time they parted ways, God knew what might have transpired. Bad luck tended to follow him like a terrible smell. It was highly likely Han Sen would have been killed by now as a result of it. Han Sen then decided to turn around and walk away, but Wang Yuhang's voice was getting audibly closer. Bollocks, I cannot be this unlucky, surely. Han Sen's heart began to sink as he saw Wang Yuhang exit the valley ahead. Wang Yuhang was a great distance away, but still, he had managed to spot Han Sen. With a face of surprise, he ran towards him in great hurry, shouting, "Bossman, I cannot believe you have come here to help little old me. To think you have come here to save me from another perilous endeavor." He hadn't the faintest idea where Wang Yuhang had been spending his days, and he most certainly didn't expect him to be here of all places. He was definitely not planning on saving him. But having been spotted, there was no point in Han Sen trying to make a quick getaway. Looking behind Wang Yuhang, Han Sen saw a big white goose giving him chase. When it caught up to Wang Yuhang, it managed to lean forward and snap its beak on his fleeing bum. The pain that resulted from such vicious pecks to the backside had him screaming in pain. "Bossman, save me!" Wang Yuhang yelled to Han Sen. Pulling out his flaming Rex spike, Han Sen ran forward to engage the goose. Fortunately, the life force of the goose was relatively weak and was more likely a sacred blood creature more than anything. All he would have to do was kill it. He struck once, and the goose almost disappeared in a billow of white feathers. The goose was set on fire by the weapon, but it actually managed to survive the hit. The white goose quacked in agony as it slowly became a black goose. Delivering another smack, Han Sen brought the feathered fiend to a fiery end. Sacred blood creature white goose killed. Beast soul gained. Eat its flesh to gain 0 to 10 sacred Geno points randomly. Bossman, you truly are a kind soul. I cannot believe you were so willing to help me. Wang Yuhang gave Han Sen a suffocating hug as tears and snots dribbled into his clothing. I had no idea you would be here. I was only passing through. But tell me, what brought you this far out into the wilds? I knew you came this way to have my back. Feel free to admit it. You came all this way just to save little old me, did you not? Oh, golly, you sure know how to touch a man. Stop. Tell me why you're here. Those people are not human, I tell you. I was ice fishing out on an ice lake when they got the drop on me. They knocked me out, and when I woke up, I found myself here inside a cage. They did not treat me like a human being, and left me locked inside a cage for the longest time. Humans should not be forced to suffer in such a way, I tell you. Eat something. Once you've had your fill, return to fonder pastures. Han Sen was not as brave as the others, who had dared bring Wang Yuhang out here. So, Han Sen prepared him food and bid that he leave. Of course, Wang Yuhang grabbed a large chunk of roast goose and began to chow down on it, heartily. Quack! A strange goose-like quack was heard high in the sky above them. Hurriedly, it descended to land directly in front of Wang Yuhang. Its landing whipped up fierce winds, as their new feathered foe's red eyes flickered between the roast meal and the unfortunate man that dined on it. Big brother, I still haven't eaten any yet. You want your charred brethren back? Wang Yuhang's hands trembled as he handed over a carved slice of roast goose to the newly descended one. Quack! The white goose angrily cried and tried to attack Wang Yuhang. "Bossman, I request your assistance once more," Wang Yuhang called and ran over to Han Sen's side. Han Sen took off into the skies, not wishing to kill their new foe. Killing it could potentially draw the attention of more creatures. With Wang Yuhang in the vicinity, there was a high likelihood of this very thing happening. "Bossman, don't run. Save me," Wang Yuhang shouted as he ran. "Little uncle, I cannot save you this time. Run back to whence you came." Han Sen yelled down to him from the safety of the skies. Whence I came. Whence I came. I haven't the faintest idea where I am or how I might return to whence I came, Wang Yuhang said in flustered response. Weren't you just kidnapped? Run to where those people brought you. Do that and find a way to leave the goose's ire on them. Han Sen wanted to see who the people that kidnapped Wang Yuhang were. Bossman, if I am in absolute danger, I still beseech that you save me, Wang Yuhang yelled out as he started to run. Of course, Han Sen watched Wang Yuhang run a great distance. Wang Yuhang led the goose without a single problem, and his attraction and kiting skills were exemplary, as they always had been. He led the goose by its nose, keeping it as close as he could, all without sustaining any damage. He ran and ran right across the mountains. He had scaled numerous mountains, and after passing over many, Han Sen espied a camp sitting at the bottom of one particular valley. There were many tents there, and Han Sen suspected that the camp held at least 200 people. But because there were no flags or cloths bearing an emblem, symbol, or logo pertaining to any particular organization, Han Sen was unable to discern who they were. When Wang Yuhang reached the camp, it caused a great scene as the campers scrambled from out of their shelter in sudden distress. The white goose was terrifyingly powerful, and the creature did not spare the lives of those who dwelled in the camp. Scores of the people there were killed, and many more of them were injured. There was one man ordering his fellows to surround the goose, and even after observing that, he was unable to tell who they were. But one thing was for sure, they were well trained. And even amidst the chaos, the subordinates were each able to adhere to the commands of their superiors and focus. Not a single person ran off, despite the goose's slaughter. Who are these people? They are pretty good. But if they cannot deal with a single super creature, for what reason have they come here? As Han Sen pondered this puzzling conundrum, he saw something strange happen to the people he observed down below. Under the leader's control, some people brought out a vial containing some concoction. Then, they injected themselves with the serum. Soon after, their muscles expanded and their eyes turned red and a red horn burst forth from their foreheads. Blood Horn Shuras, Han Sen thought, with much surprise. He never did figure out where the Blood Horn Shuras that assaulted him came from. And although he most suspected Angel Gene, he hadn't found any proof to confirm it was them. Of everything that might have occurred on his journey here, encountering Blood Horn Shuras was one of the most unlikely. And now, viewing them with greater clarity, they didn't look like Shuras at all. They were simply humans that had forced mutations upon themselves. Despite the folly of their actions, they did look far stronger following their injections and subsequent transformation into what Han Sen had dubbed a Blood Horn Shuras. For a while, they were able to maintain their position, but still, they were unable to slay the goose that had descended upon them. That being said, the goose was unable to totally destroy the camp now, too. The elites amongst them that had opened their gene locks did not use the medicine, and they instead took off after Wang Yuhang in the desire of capturing him once more. Han Sen watched what was going on for a while, and it seemed as if no damage was being dealt to the wild goose. They seemed to be running out of patience, and so one of the elites injected themselves with the concoction. Within seconds, the man's muscles expanded by a vast amount. The person's head grew a horn and his life force made a great leap in power. The man's body burst into flames. He threw his fist forward towards the white goose and incinerated a portion of the white goose's plumage. Impossible. Han Sen's face was one of utter shock. The man had dealt elemental damage through the manner of a projectile. Only celestial beings were supposedly capable of doing such a thing. Although the man had unlocked his gene lock, he was far away from achieving such a level. Therefore, how was he able to do what he had just done? What in the world is that medicine? Han Sen wondered, with distraught surprise. The white goose wasn't heavily injured, but after the fire-power-imbued man joined the fight with all the other Blood Horn Shuras, it was quickly put at a disadvantage. The white goose, seeing its sudden inability to win the battle, cried out and flew away. Wang Yuhang, in the meantime, had been beaten up by the elites and thrown back into a cage. Luckily, despite his egregious luck, Wang Yuhang was not a dumb person. Although he was back at square one, he didn't call out for Han Sen's aid, and it seemed his kidnappers were still unaware of the presence of other people on the empty island. Manager, Wang Yuhang's problems extend beyond mere bad luck. In his short time with us, he has caused us much trouble. We have sustained many losses, and I am afraid our army will be wasted before that thing comes out. Two people were engaged in discussion inside the leader's tent. Han Sen bent his ear their way, thinking he might pick up a thing or two of interest. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.